What's up, everyone? This is Rayuka here, and welcome to another podcast. Yes, another one. So, before going any further, just be aware the podcast is for mature audiences, meaning that there may be some language. And before going into the podcast, happy late New Year. It doesn't even matter at this point because we're already February. And I want to mention today I have with me yet again, no need for introduction, but AzureNova.
I'm the only guest on this
It's
podcast.
so sad. It's so sad. But that's what makes it legendary. That's what makes it special. Um, so yeah, there's a lot to talk about. Some of the stuff that's going to be brought up earlier on in this podcast is going to be old news. Some of it, and then as we go down, or better yet, as we descend into darkness, it
Oh
gets more
no.
spicier. So I'm going to start off with, I guess, somewhat light-hearted topics here. It's going to be mainly gaming related for the most part. So for those who don't know, which I'm pretty sure some of you who have been listening to the podcast probably already know this by now, King of Fighters 15 has been released. The roster has obviously been leaked for some time, and I personally haven't been disappointed with what I've seen so far. But man, this whole thing came up because Twitter of all places is Twitter is a place where conversations go to die. Like it's oh my gosh. So before King of Fighters was released, 15 anyways, there was like this whole thing about the story doesn't matter in a fighting game, right? And I have to disagree with that because clearly a lot of people, and now I can't speak for everyone in the FGC, but I know a lot of people play fighting games for the lore, not just for the characters, because there is a story behind all these characters to some extent. Some that ain't important, and some that is. It kind of varies on which character it is. And if stories were not important in fighting games, then games like Mortal Kombat would have not made as much money as they have made. And most of it has to do with the story. So it's like, yeah, the characters are a plus, but the story is always the driving force behind
No,
said game.
it's like story always matters. It's just how it's done.
Yeah, like not all fighting games obviously have a great story. I mean, for instance,
Yeah.
I may be burning bridges when I say this, but Street Fighter, I mean, Street Fighter stories all over the place. It's literally an egg to the wall. But when it comes to games like Mortal Kombat, it was sort of the same way too for some time until they just corrected everything with time travel and of course when you add time travel into a game and some sort of multiverse
And
stuff or whatever, it just retcons everything pretty much.
when you do time travel, it has to be done right.
Depends who's writing it. I mean, in the case of Mortal Kombat, they did a good job with it. Even though at this point I don't see where the series is gonna go going forward. But then yet again, nothing never ends perfect in Mortal Kombat. That's the one thing I know from seeing the many games. Nothing never goes as planned. But besides talking about the Mortal Kombat, oh boy. So let's see. Street Fighter 6 was revealed, and it. I don't know. For me, the reveal wasn't bad. It was just a teaser trailer, and there's only so much you can take from the teaser trailer of Street Fighter 6. It shows the new character Luke and an older Ryu. But the stuff people were paying attention to in the trailer is what baffles me. So, first thing we'll talk about is what's speculated is I guess, the more realistic take graphically of these characters. Like, it to me, the hypocrisy from the FGC, it makes me laugh because it's like a couple years back when these leaked screenshots came out for Street Fighter Five of a more realistic Street Fighter Five. People were like, "Oh yeah, that should have been Street Fighter." Blah blah. All of a sudden, Street Fighter 6 happens, and it looks obviously is gonna go with a more, I guess, sort of realistic looking,
That re-engine.
yeah, the re-engine or whatever. And the feedback has been, oh, it looks terrible, blah blah blah. It's just hypocritical. It's like you can't have the cake, you eat it too. And on top of that, like for instance, and I hate when people make me defend Street Fighter. Don't make me defend Street Fighter. Like Street Fighter has good and bad things about it. But first off, Street Fighter 4 was not good. I mean, and when I say not good, I'm not talking about gameplay. I mean, look wise, the characters look like they look weird. All right, for Street Fighter 4, they looked weird. I mean, for the time, it worked, but to me, Street Fighter 4 just is one of those games that just didn't age well, look wise. And then fast forward to Street Fighter 5. Street Fighter 5 wasn't bad. It was more kind of this anime-ish sort of mixture that they were going for.
Yeah.
But it varies on how they executed it, right? Some people think, and I can't talk for everyone based on what I've seen though. Some people will think that, oh well, the art style for Street Fighter 5 was meh, and then some people are like, oh, it was okay. I'm on the okay side. Like I to me it's really whatever, but it wasn't bad. If I had to pick between Street Fighter 4 and Street Fighter 5, obviously I would lean towards Street Fighter 5 because I just did not like the look of Street Fighter 4 that much. I just wasn't a fan of that.
What do you mean?
Look, man, you had the bulkiness of Ryu. Like just the characters, they just seem too weird looking. Right? You look at them, and you just be like, what the hell? Like, I don't know. Some people really like that style. I was just like, it's
No,
what.
yeah, Street Fighter 5 looks better.
Yeah, like if I had to pick Street Fighter 5 now, as for Street Fighter 6, it's most likely gonna look better than Street Fighter 5. Now this is the thing. There's a lot of critiques and criticism coming from whether it's the look of the trailer or the logo, because I also seen that a lot of people are complaining about the logo. Now the logo does look very generic. I can say that. I mean, it's a generic looking logo. Um, but it's neither here or there. I wouldn't be surprised if they change it just to appeal to have that more of a Street Fighter, I guess, aesthetic to it. But then another thing is like, when I see these articles, and yes, there's articles that were focused on. So in the trailer, the camera has a pan zoom kind of thing going on, right, from above up or whatever, or bottom up, whatever. Anyways, haven't seen the trailer, only seen it like twice,
Yeah.
and now I didn't notice this because obviously I'm not looking for for this, but for whatever reason, people were looking at. I guess they suspect, or it is speculated that Ryu's Vang, his Shalom, Bondo Ding Dong, whatever, is kind of protruding out of his pants, and for whatever reason, people were focused on that spot. Now, when
First
I
of all, yeah, it's like, why are you looking at that?
Yeah, but not only that, when I watched the trailer, I didn't see that because I wasn't looking at it
It's like,
like that.
here's the thing.
But people
If
pointed
that's what
that shit
you're
out. I was like,
into,
what?
here's the thing. If that's what you're into, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Like, you can, of course, look at that, but like, with everything else going on, why?
That is the big
It's
mystery.
like, that's all. Why?
For whatever
If
reason,
that's what
these
you're looking for, fine. I'm not against it. You can look all you want. That's
uh,
great.
these
But it's like, why is that such a big thing?
look, these journalists, they have to make catchy articles. So if that means writing about a ding dong shaka, reuse
Yeah,
whatever,
but I
then
mean,
I guess that's a piece. Like I just
but
look.
here's the
There
thing.
was even
It's
articles on his feet,
but here's the thing. It
and I thought that
but
shit was
here's the
stupid.
thing. It's fine though. It's
It's
like
oh
it's
no.
absolutely
You know why
fine.
it's not fine? You know why it's not fine? I'm
But
calling.
it
No.
is.
No. Wait. Let me finish. Check this out. Okay. Let's rewind. Let's rewind a little bit back in time here. Street Fighter V, Rayuka, that infamous ass slap that Capcom had to adjust because
Yep.
people were in their fucking feelings. So imagine, Capcom goes and shows Cammy for Street Fighter 6, and she's looking, I don't know, a bit very
That's my
attractive.
point, though.
And all of a
If the
sudden,
ladies
everybody
can look
starts
like
complaining
that,
because her booty cheeks are showing or whatever. Oh, it's okay. Ryu has a
listen,
little jump going on. You
listen,
know,
listen.
double
If the ladies
standards.
if the ladies can show off the goods, then the guys can't do it. If
I
Ryu
mean,
wants to show what he got.
I guess the Street Fight. I guess Street Fight is going jungle warfare. I mean,
Like,
oh man, look, there's so much double standard in this with these games these days. It's unreal. It's unreal. But we'll get more into the double standards a little bit later on because this is. But anyways,
Ryu's like my fists are up here.
but everybody was looking down there. They're like, oh yes. This reminds me of when they revealed Oro as a character for Street Fighter V. People, there was articles. I believe it was from Kotaku. An article. People they were demanding. I think it was Kotaku. Actually, don't hold me on that. But I know there was an article that I saw that
Taku is straight
people
trash.
were demanding that they wanted to see Oro's junk like in the
Yeah.
game. And first off, that's ridiculous. That's not gonna happen. Capcom ain't gonna be that stupid. I don't think they would be. But I'm like, why is that important? Like, why? Because he's
Hey.
wearing he's barely wearing much. I mean, he's a hermit, right? I believe Oro's a hermit for the most part,
I mean,
unless they
like I
change his
said,
lore or story.
if that's what they want to see, that's what they want to see. I don't mind.
Oh
It's
man, but
like,
it'd be so bad if Armika, does an ass slap.
yeah.
Oh
It's
my
like
gosh,
that was stupid.
or something else happens. Maybe her pachangas get bigger or something. Like I don't know, because people complain so much these days if there's attractive female fictional characters, But it's okay, if it's a food. I mean, you can't say that, food. It's a total pass, Just, you know. Everybody wants a little baseball bat, right? I mean, anyways, all jokes aside, holy shit.
It's so sad.
It is. It's just everything is just. So outside of Capcom revealing the whole Street Fighter 6 that is coming, uh, a Game Informer decided to write, I guess, a little hot take. In my opinion, it's a really bad opinion. Where Game Informer was like, Street Fighter 6 should be free to play.
No.
Exactly. And that's the first thing I said. Now, for those who don't know, yes, Game Informer does follow me on Twitter, but I look at it like
Listen,
this.
listen.
I do not
Games need
agree.
money to survive.
Yeah, like I do not agree with their stance on Street Fighter. Like that was just a really bad take. Like if Street Fighter 6 goes free to play, to me is dead in the water. I don't care what all these supposed esports players or the people in the FGC. A lot, in my opinion, a lot of them are going to shield because they're either being sponsored or there's some sort of background deals going on. But I'm going to keep it real. And like, look, if Capcom makes Street Fighter 6 free to play, that is a terrible move. Now, some will say, well, if they make it free to play, it will span, to more people and more audiences. Really? Look what happened with Dead or Alive. But you can't compare. I can see the arguments. So you can't compare Dead or Alive with Street Fighter. Still, it's the principle. If they make Street Fighter 6 free to play, best to believe that game will get milked in ways you will not believe. Some will say, well, Capcom wouldn't do that. Well, then you haven't looked at their track record. Yeah, like they clearly haven't looked at their track record. They clearly don't understand. It's like Street Fighter going free to play will destroy that series. Imagine every character coming out. Oh, you got to pay like $10 or $5, $7, whatever for them. But then everyone's like, "Oh, the season pass was a great model." the last season pass that came out for Street Fighter, I still questioned it. I even critiqued it when I talked about it. And I wasn't a fan of some of the things they did with that season pass. And a fun fact for those who don't know, I'm really not a fan of season passes. But that is the norm today, unfortunately. That is the norm they made for fighting games in general, for what I can tell. So I'm like, if Street Fighter 6 goes free to play, it's done. The series is over, in my opinion. Now, some will say that may be hyperbolic, but I'm like, the writing's on the wall if it goes free to play. That means Capcom had no faith that that game was going to do well. If Street Fighter 6 goes free to play, they have no faith that that game's going to do well at all. So I'm like, the best thing Capcom can do is keep that game at a steady price. And if they need more time to develop it, develop it. But don't release the game unpolished like with Street Fighter 5. Because with Street Fighter 6, you want to
Yeah.
make sure that it comes out ready to go. But if you're going to release this because because Capcom has made this mistake in the past multiple times, if you're going to release this game out of the gate, unfinished, unpolished, bugs ain't even ironed out, there's going to be a lot of backlash just on that. And for those who will say, well, no, that's not true, I call bullshit because Street Fighter 5, when that came out and it was bare bones, the amount of criticism, you had people high up in the FGC that they weren't sure if that game was going to make it. That's how bad it was at launch. And at that, keep in mind, Street Fighter 6 was announced, and they didn't even announce rollback for it yet. So who knows how the online is going to be. So the way I see it, Capcom needs to take their time developing this game. And it's like, me personally, I'm speaking for myself when I say this. I'm not in a rush to play Street Fighter 6. I don't care if the game doesn't come out to like 2024. Honestly, like I personally don't care. No, like it's true. Like they could, for me, they could take all the time they need. Like I'm not in a rush to play it. But you got some people out there that they got to feel that itch. Like they got. It's like that infamous Dave Chappelle skit with the
Can't mention that.
oh, for those who there was this sketch of Dave Chappelle. I'm trying to be careful how I phrase it, but let's just say he played a character that had a bad addiction issue, and really funny sketches, by the way. It's so sad that what's happened to comedy, but those are some really funny sketches. But I feel like sometimes that's how people be in the FGC, in the fighting game community. They're like, oh, I need my next fighting game. I don't have enough of it. Then it comes out, I hate this shit. I want the next one. And believe it or not, this sort of did happen when Street Fighter 6 was announced. Because as soon as Street Fighter 6 was announced, it was trending on Twitter of all places, Tekken 8. When's Tekken 8 coming? When we gonna get Tekken 8? Shit, we didn't even get a Tag Tournament 3. Everybody worried about Tekken 8. I'm like,
Never.
yeah, and this thing is like, it's never enough. It's never enough. It's like, oh, y'all already want Tekken 8. Shit, they just announced Street Fighter 6. But it's been so many years since Tekken 7. And for me, I look, I'm just gonna, as someone that played like all the Tekkens and whatnot, I do want the story to conclude with Tekken. I want the whole. Look, it's no secret, but I'm gonna say it right now. Tekken 8 is obviously going to be around Kazuya and Jin, and most likely they're going to recap some stuff that had to do with the previous Tekkens, maybe to bridge some gaps or whatever. But they need to conclude that story. Just because Tekken 7 was all about the Mishima, like explaining more about Heihachi and Kazuya's mother, and kind of giving this background, even though Akuma has been a mystery for the most part. Like what Akuma is being that Akuma's canon, I still think that was a big mistake. Like Akuma is a cool character. He just shouldn't have not been canon to the lore because Capcom owns that character. But anyways, with Tekken 8, I just want them to conclude. I want them to finish off a lot of the story stuff, just a lot of the main stuff, and then move on to the next generation. But obviously, if they run out of ideas, they'll. I think
Like
that's what all. Huh?
you said next generation. I said like X-Men.
I just think that I don't know, man. Like the way everything's going with these games, but yeah, anyways, I segue really off from the whole Street Fighter thing, but it is what it
Yeah.
is. Huh?
I said yes, yes, you did.
Yeah, I segue off because, anyways, the whole thing with Street Fighter is stupid. It shouldn't go free to play. It's a terrible business move. I hope Capcom doesn't do it. If they do, to me, it's a red flag. That's where I stand with it. I'm not. But besides that, what was almost overshadowed from the announcement of Street Fighter Six was almost overshadowed, but it wasn't. Surprisingly, a lot of people were keeping their eye on this one. Was Capcom Fighting Collection. Now, I have to say, Capcom, in my opinion, has not done the greatest job with these fighting collections. For instance, they did the Street Fighter collection like I think a year or so ago, and I had all the arcade versions of Street Fighter, and I had mixed feelings about that. It wasn't, yeah, I just had mixed feelings about that one. But in this collection, what's very interesting is that they include all the versions of Darkstalkers. That was unexpected. So you get
Ooh,
all the versions of Darkstalkers.
ooh, I love Dark Souls.
Now, I thought that was strange. They basically included the two Darkstalkers. I'm trying to pull up this list here, and then they included Darkstalkers, the Night Warriors, Darkstalkers Revenge, Vampire Savior, the Lord of Vampires, Vampire Hunter 2, Darkstalkers Revenge, and Vampire Savior 2, the Lord of Vampire. Anyways, in Japan, it's called Vampire Savior. So Darkstalkers in Japan has a different name. And then they also have, which I thought was really interesting. Now they added Cyberbots. So for those who are wondering where Jin came from, because a lot of people made not the Tekken Jin, the Jin that appears in Marvel vs. Capcom that he like rubs his ass or his back with his shirt or whatever. Um, yeah, he's from Cyberbots. So they're including that game in there, which I thought was really interesting. Another interesting one is Red Earth. I am very surprised that they're re-releasing that, and that game deserves to be re-released. They should have did that one sooner. More eyes can see what Red Earth was about. And then the one that really disappoints me out of this whole collection is Hyper Street Fighter 2. Now, there's been so many re-releases of Street Fighter. They should have added the last version of Street Fighter 2 that came out, which had the redone sprites or whatever, and they had a Violent Ken and Violent or Dark Ryu, whatever. Like this version of Street Fighter 2 to me it's just a waste. It really is. I mean, for those who like Hyper Street Fighter 2, that's going to be a plus. But for me, I don't even care about that version. I'd rather have the last one that was released. But that's just my preference. And then they added Super Gem Fighter Mini Mix. It's basically the mini Street Fighter, the chibi looking ones.
Yeah.
And it's going to release June 2024, 2022 if we're all still on this planet by then, of course. Uh, but yeah, that's the Capcom Fighting Collection. Um, I am curious to see the whole Darkstalker stuff though. They did alter, by the way, there is a website. So for those who go to Street Fighter Six's website, there's like a little tab below that takes you right to the Capcom Fighting Collection or whatever. And if you click on that, they actually updated a lot of these games. So they're not just regular re-releases, they're actually adjusting and fixing some things. But there's some things I don't like that they changed. Like I believe in one of the Darkstalkers, they removed like the secret endings or whatever. It's little things like that, but overall, it's really interesting to see that these games are returning. Look, I will go as far as to say I will not be surprised if Marvel vs. Capcom 4 happens, and that this is all part of,
It's gonna be broken.
yeah, like all of a sudden, like you hear like halfway into a year or whatever, oh well, we're announcing Part 4, and then that explains all these re-releases because they're trying to get people caught up with these characters. But that's a
They want
theory.
that
That's
money.
speculation, huh?
I said they want that money so they can make it.
The money is always the money.
Yep.
So on to other things now. Dragon Ball Fighter Z has been I mean, I'll say it's more dead than alive. If anything, it kind of reminds me of the Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle community. How every time something gets announced, like oh rollback, they're so hopeful, and then all of a sudden they go into a lobby and they realize everyone's just role playing and no one's actually playing the game.
Serious?
Yes,
Oh
yes.
no!
It's like the ultimate troll. And I'm like, I see these people on Twitter is like, oh, look, yes, they're adding rollback. They're gonna do this test. And I'm like, the game's probably gonna just die off. I mean, yeah, you'll see cross tag battle in tournaments, but it doesn't mean it's popping like that. And this is the problem that a lot of the fighting games have. It's an ugly truth that a lot of people in the FGC, especially really popular figures, don't want to talk about. And even if they do, they just brush off most of the crap because they don't care. It's all about whatever it is they're trying to push. But anyway, so Namco Bandai had their little event, Dragon Ball Games Battle Hour. This was like a while, not that far long ago, and they revealed Lab Coat Android 21, and she coming out February 24th. That's like
Oh yeah!
huh?
I said, oh yeah!
No, what's funny to me about this is that they're releasing her. She should be free, in my opinion. I don't know if she is. She should be free because she's in the game. But she's like the only character coming.
Mm,
No season pass to conclude or finish off the roster. I mean, the roster is fairly big anyway, so I don't know if they really need one. But fans are always
yeah.
hungry for characters. That's the thing. Um, and the thing is, they're not even adding rollback to this game. They're not even adding like what will keep Dragon Ball Fighter Z alive, in my opinion, will be crossplay because that game is not that hot right now. It's really not booming now. Some people will be like, "Oh, yes, it is." Well, I mean, yeah, if you go to a locals, if you go to a tournament, yeah, people are playing it, but it doesn't mean the game is that hot. It's not like what it was when it was on launch. Like when the game came out, yeah, it was everybody was playing it. But it just like with any fighting game or with any game, eventually the audience drops off, and you have those so few that stay behind until, well, as the saying
So they don't.
goes, another one bites the dust. Oh wait, I don't want to get hit with copyright. It's a quote. It's a quote. Okay, I'm not singing the damn song. Anyways, so
Too
Android
late.
what? Android 21 is coming with her lab coat. And yeah, that's about it really. Fans were disappointed for what I could see in these comments. They were not happy about this because the way the stream ended was they left it with a cliffhanger. Like not even a cliffhanger. They didn't really say anything. Like they didn't say if they were doing anything or whatever. And then some people are comparing this, like saying, "Oh, well, why is it that Xenoverse 2 still gets DLC?" I'm surprised that Xenoverse 2, by the way, still gets DLC. I didn't even know that shit. But that Fighter Z is not getting that support. For all anyone knows, Arc System Works is probably making part two. Maybe that's why. I mean,
Huh.
when I think about, because I'm
I
like,
don't know why.
it made money, so I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if that's why they're not putting that much effort. But it's still, it's also Bandai Namco or Namco Bandai, whatever. It's also up to them if they want to continue doing things for it. So it's a double edged sword. Who knows? But yeah, that's pretty much it for the Dragon Ball stuff. So now we kind of slowly now we kind of descend into the spicier topics here. Um, so pro Tekken player Tanukana released from Cyclops Athletics gaming esports team following inappropriate comments about short men. Um, Now, if you type in this story, like it's obvious what it's about, but it's kind of old already. But apparently, this Tanukana, she was a very prominent player in Tekken. She was a part of a team, and they let her go because she said some
Not anymore.
not anymore, because she said some spicy comments during a live stream about uh now okay, I want to say this. To me, it sounds like a poorly bad it sounds like a bad joke if it was a joke. Uh but it seems like maybe she was serious because she was way too apologetic after this. So I you know, maybe she was pretty serious in what she said. To me though, I don't think it's serious. I think it's fairly funny, but maybe it's just that I have a messed up sense of humor. So trying to look for her for what she said, which okay.
That was well. She said something about that they don't deserve human rights or
So
something like that.
Tanukana reportedly okay, so she says short men who are under 170 cm don't
Hmm.
have human rights. And she actually said other things after this. Basically, they don't have human rights, and she basically talks about her preference. Like she likes tall men, tall kind of buff dudes or whatever. And there's clips of this live stream yet again, and I think some people got more offended by this because she said something along the lines of bone lightening surgery. Like I guess, excuse my pronunciation, but it's a surgery where they do this surgery where they lengthen your bones. For those who don't know, yes, that's an actual thing, I guess. And to me, it just sounds like she has a preference. Um, but she she poorly said it, I guess, whatever. So Kotaku of all places, I hate mentioning
Oh,
this site because they all
Taco's
they do
trash.
is they do hit pieces left and right, and it's bullshit garbage pieces. It's really dumpster fire crap, and it just baffles me that it's really mind numbing to read their articles. Like I wonder how they even pass, but yet they call themselves game journalists. So Cyclops, well, the team she was on. Long story short, they let her go. They let her go because to me now, I'm not even going to bother reading the statement, but it's obvious why they let her go. It's because of the situation. To me, to me personally, it sounded like that team was trying to find an excuse to let her go. Maybe she was too much money.
Oh no,
I
what
don't
it
know.
was,
That's just me
it was the
going off on
backlash.
speculative end.
It
But
was the backlash. They didn't want to deal with it.
oh, they want to deal with the
Companies,
cancel culture. Cancel
companies don't.
Cyclops. That one I'm. There's
Yeah, pretty much. No, companies don't stand behind their people. They really
Oh,
don't. They
not
only
these
care about
days.
the
No,
money.
it's all about the money. Yeah, and this is the thing. Even though they cave into the cancel mob, the mob doesn't give a shit. They're gonna just keep going to the no more. It's the interwebs. But I guess it's whatever. But anyways, I'm gonna the thing I find crazy about this is that when people talk about this story, they don't really go too much into her statement on this. I did say earlier on that she was very apologetic. In my opinion, too apologetic. Um, but I'm gonna read her statement, which oh man. So Tanukana's statement on this was to all to all the fans who have supported me until today. To Red Bull, who were my first sponsor, I deeply apologize for the pain and trouble my selfish statements have caused. The words I uttered during my broadcast are completely inexcusable, and I accept that they came from a place of my own ignorance. There's no way for me to excuse the disappointment I've caused you all in this
For
situation.
shame.
As a pro esports player, as well as someone attached to a company, I deeply regret my statement and profusely apologize for betraying you all. Who are you betraying? Who exactly? The,
All
the
the short
companies?
people.
The sponsors? Like,
All the short people.
uh, who's offended? Like,
The short people. That's the whole reason why.
look, we live in a very soft world today. That's all I'm saying. We live in a very our society is so soft. It's like I don't know. Maybe when I was growing up, people were just really fucked up, and then today it's like backwards world. And I'm not saying people being messed up is a good thing. I'm not saying that. I mean, it's shouldn't be that way. But I mean, there's not nice people in the world, realistically. I mean, anyone that
Always been that way.
yeah, but
Deal with
unfortunately,
it.
we live in a time where it seems like people get offended for any little thing. And if anyone watches the clip where she says this, she doesn't look like she's being serious. I'm just saying. To me, that's just what I see. But I think everyone deserves human rights, but I could see people taking what I say out of context for the fuck of it. But anyways, long story short, which I had to read her statement because I just think it's ridiculous. She's no longer part of the Cyclops, so I guess no super beams or whatever.
No more X-Men. They broke up.
Look, man, Cyclops lives matter. Cyclops lives matter.
Ooh.
Shit. Anyways, oh boy, oh boy. So we're going into a interesting topic. AzureNova. This is one AzureNova knows more about. I only started looking into this, so I still only know bits and pieces. Um, so Lost Arcs,
Oh
Lost Ark.
no.
So this game called Lost Ark. Now some of you may already know what this game is if you played it, but Lost Ark
It's,
has been going through the rounds lately of a lot of whether it's censorship. There's just a lot of shit going on.
see,
Um,
this
here we
this is
go.
the real reason why Ray has me on these podcasts because I'm an RPG person. So
So
whenever there's a topic on RPGs, it's like, you know what? He's like, I'm gonna get Azure.
Kotaku decided to write a few pieces of all places. Yet again, I'm referencing Kotaku here. Lost Ark decrypts the
Stop giving them
depictions
clout.
of female characters feel a decade out of date. The free-to-play action MMO forces women to wear heels and has gender-locked classes. And the article just goes on and on with its in my
All
opinion,
that
it's
says,
bullshittery.
all that says is that this isn't the game for you. Go play something else if you're offended by that much.
Oh man.
It's the truth, though.
So from my understanding, apparently Lost Arks also they have outfits that were already being censored in the Western release.
The
So
starting the starting outfits were censored. Amazon messed up on the founders packs.
yeah, elaborate on that. Like, in what way did they?
So there was a glitch
Mhm.
that let people actually claim the founders packs more than once. And so by doing so, the items in there, they were able to pretty much the game went pay to win because it messed up the in-game economy and stuff and everything because of that glitch. Now the funny thing is, you might say, "Oh, it was a glitch. It wasn't their fault." Blah blah blah. Here's the thing: Lost Ark has released in other regions, and they did never had a problem. It's only because Amazon, the same people who did New World, it's like also it's because they touched it. It's like that's the reason why. It's like I know Amazon's they're trying to break into the gaming market and everything, but it's they're doing a bad job. I was come out and say they're not doing so good. It's like every time they touch something, it's just kind of fails. Now, you might say, "Oh, does that mean Lost Ark is like a terrible, terrible game?" No, it's not terrible. Like gameplay wise, it's not really terrible. It's just how it's handled. It's like that's the thing. It's like if you look at the reviews, it's still mixed. It's like it got stuck there because of how it's being handled.
Mm.
It's like this is our region is the only region where they messed up on the game. It's released, Europe, Japan, Korea, whatever. Nope, never messed up this bad. Also, to go even farther on what they did. Now here comes this part of it. So they went even as far as to change some of the NPCs
Oh yeah, yeah. We were
because of
having yeah.
because of cultural diversity. I'm like, why would you do that? I'm like, why would you touch that like that? It's like, first of all, I don't play stuff because I want cultural diversity and whatnot and everything. More so, it's like because it's not from my region or area actually makes it even more, it makes me want to play it more.
Yeah.
It makes no because there's a difference in culture and this and that and everything. It's like It makes no sense why you would do that just because. It's like, why would you inject your politics into this? It's like for no reason.
It's the current gaming landscape. Now, I was gonna say earlier, me and Azure actually talked about this briefly before the podcast, so I had a little bit of idea about that whole like what you mentioned, and it, the gaming landscape now is all screwed up, right? For instance, when Sony moved its headquarters, all the censorship, all the crap that's going on in gaming, and if someone says something about it, they're labeled all these things that he or she may not be, all because they have a difference in opinion or a difference in view, or they want to label you X, Y, and Z because oh my gosh, your views don't align with their views, and it's ridiculous. It's like games are being ruined little by
Yeah,
little, if not more faster than before. And
they are. They
and if
really are.
these companies think that this is the right approach going forward, they might as well prepare to go broke because ain't nobody gonna buy this stuff. It's like the people crying for censorship. They don't buy these games. They never played these games. This reminds me of, and we saw the signs of this coming more so with Sega Kagura back then. You know, a little hit, you know, going back in time here, but when everything happened with Takaki, you know, when
Yeah.
Sega, for instance, Sega Kagura 7, it's in high for what I could tell in hiatus. So, and it's all because it was Sega Kagura came out at a time where games can sort of still be games, but that was like at that time too, it was like the start of this downward spiral into what we're seeing today.
Now, here's the thing. It's like people might be like, "Oh, why does it matter if they change this or that?" Because here's the thing. It doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. It's like, why would you change this character's, like why would you change their ethnicity just because it makes no sense for that region? It's like because like we said, like Ray said, we talked about this briefly. What if they went and changed all the ethnicities of the zombies in Resident Evil 5?
Oh yeah, this is a good one.
It's like because it's like, what if they made them all white? It's like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. And their reason behind it is because, well, because we didn't want to look like you're just shooting black people. It's like it takes place in Africa. There's mostly black people there. Not saying that there aren't light skinned people, but guess what? It's like that's the ethnic background of African or black people.
Now,
It's, it would make
for those who don't know, Azure, for those who don't know Azure's ethnicity, well, I'll
it.
let Azure.
No, go ahead. I see.
Okay.
It's like you can say it.
Well, look, we are what they will call people of color. So when you hear Azure talk like this, it's
Chocolate.
because, huh?
I said chocolate people.
It's crazy because even being a person of color, it's like we're walking on eggshells how we talk about certain things.
I'm not.
But Azure brought up a good point here, and that is if you're making for instance, I'll use this example. Let's say they had Resident Evil on Mars, right? And Mars had Martian people, aliens like green beings running around, right, in this particular area. And a zombie apocalypse happens to break out in this area. So, what do you expect to see? Who do you expect to see infected with the whatever virus in this area that are zombies? The ones that live in that area. Just just makes sense. So, if for instance, if Resident Evil is happening in Japan,
Yep.
well, I expect to see a lot of Japanese people because that just makes sense. It's in Japan, right? There's nothing racist about that. That's just the region. If Resident Evil is happening in Europe, which by the way, Resident Evil 4 happened in some part of Europe, what is expected to be seen? Latinos.
That's what we saw with Spanish people. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And that wasn't
Or Spanish
racist.
background.
I didn't
Yeah.
see people crying about that. I thought the game was great. I was like, oh, this game's great. Resident Evil 4 was a wonderful game. Um, So if Resident Evil 5, which this is like a dead beating a dead horse, this whole example, but like Azure said, if Resident Evil 5 is set in some part of Africa, well then you expect to see a, a certain ethnicity there, and
Yep.
and that's just how it is. It does. So to me, it's like people have to stop making things about color and race and all this stuff, and just view it like it's the story of the game. Like if there's a horror game happening in some part of Brazil, well, you're gonna see Brazil people in there. It's happening in Brazil.
Yep. Now, if the original creator like wanted something to be some way, I wouldn't have a problem with it because that's the way it was supposed to be. That's the way they wanted and intended it for it to be. I would
Mm-hmm.
have no problem with it. But when you change something just because, I'm just like, why? I'm like, you kind of ruin it's like the person's vision and everything. I'm like, that makes no sense.
But sadly,
It's like
we.
I'm
Mhm.
no, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say sadly we live, and I mentioned this even before off air, but sadly we live in a time where if we say a certain thing, like, and this goes back to what I said earlier, you get labeled a certain kind of way. So even if you think logically and you view things in a logical way, to another person that isn't in agreement with your view, they're like, oh well, if you're gonna have that view, well then that means they'll put it with a negative view, and they'll be like, well then that means that's okay, or this is okay, and it's like no, it's not. You're not saying that. I'm saying like if a story is written like what you just said in a certain kind of way, in a certain a narrative, in a certain setting, in a certain region, then it should be honored that way. If I'm making a story set in Japan, well, then I expect the story and the environment and everything to be around that that area, with whatever. But it's like we live in a time where because everything is so politicized and whatnot, it almost makes it impossible to say things in a certain way. Because if you talk, you have to worry about, oh well, you're going to be this that label this that. It's like no, it's just that's just the internet. That's not the real world. I remembered when I played Resident Evil. And that's the reality. When I played Resident Evil, I never thought of where any of these characters came from. Like the my first thought of playing Resident Evil was what I'm getting into. I didn't think about the race of the characters or anything like that. I was curious about the characters' backstory, like, yo, like, what were they about? Like Resident Evil 1, Stars. Okay, what is Stars? What was Stars about? And then you figure out that as it unfolds, the story. I wasn't thinking about, oh man, is Chris like European or he's just white? What's his story? Like I didn't give a shit about that. I just thought he was a cool character. The same with Jill. But unfortunately in this day and age everything has to be about something, and it's just like more everything has to be something more politicized, and it just ruins what it is, and I don't think that's fair whatsoever.
Yeah. Like again, if it was like that from the beginning, like if the artist did this or the creator did that, it's like then that's fine. But they intentionally changed something because, and their reason was because of that. People can look this up themselves
The mob.
because of cult, because yeah, because it's diverse. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm just like, you didn't need to do that. It wasn't needed at all.
It's everything is around. It's about the
It
mob.
just doesn't look right. Like I looked at the, the screenshots. This it doesn't look right. I'm like, why would you change that? It's like these characters look better this way. It's like I don't know why you would do that.
I think to me, those what I find crazy is that it's like the entertainment being made today isn't being made for obviously it's not being made for us. It's being made for a crowd that doesn't support these things. Like
It's because mine.
in a
Yeah.
perfect example to this, for those who say, well, that's not true, I'll give a real good example. Marvel Comics and DC Comics.
Oh no.
They do not sell well, especially DC Comics as of late. I mean, if has anyone looked at their list? All they have is Batman, 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 Batman. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy my Batman, but everything is Batman because they haven't ruined Batman yet. I mean, given they've
Mhm.
been chipping away at it. I mean, they practically ruined Superman. I mean, they practically ruined so many things. when it comes to the DC characters. I mean, I don't even want to get started with the whole thing with Superman's son that just recently happened.
Don't.
That whole thing there. But their comics ain't doing great at all. And I don't see these mobs buying it because they don't support this stuff. So what do these corporations do? Then they rely on the films. But as with all good things, how long are the films gonna last before even they run out of popularity? Because Marvel was in this weird point. No, it's true. Like Marvel was at a weird point, right? Marvel was sort of going downhill, and then yes, the new Spider-Man that came out, which it's a good movie, and surprisingly, they have a lot of nostalgia in there and a lot of plot twists. Obviously, all three Spider-Mans are in there. Spoiler alert, and the film unravels the way it does, but there's a lot of nostalgia in there. And then you have the next one, Doctor Strange, that's coming out, and I'm pretty sure that's going to even be more nostalgic or whatever. But that's the films. The same can't be said for the comics. Even the films at times miss the mark because Marvel, segueing from DC real quick, Marvel will do some things right, and then they step back like 10 steps. DC, they just been stepping back, and back, and I don't know why. It just doesn't make sense. They're just ruining everything they have. Like they're coming out with this new Batman game. No one's really talking about it. I haven't really seen a lot of people talk about this game. It's Batman Arkham Knights or something like that, or whatever it's called. And I'm not looking forward to it because it's not canon to the Arkham series. It just shares the aesthetic, I guess, the look of it, but it's its own thing. But it's like these games are sadly get ruined little by little, and because people are being honest with their views about it, it's like if I'm wrong, prove me wrong. But the numbers don't lie, the sales don't lie. These comics ain't doing well. I will go as far as to say that the comic industry is on its deathbed, the way things are looking. And people have said this off and on throughout the years, but it's more seeable now than it ever was. That's the thing. And I just think comics should go back to being comics and just push away from all the crap that's been going on. But unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case. And that's why manga is destroying comics. Like, huh?
Yeah, it is for the longest time now.
Yeah, it's been destroying them, and it's most likely going to continue that road. Anime is a threat to that to the comic industry, like, but more power to it. It's oh man. But that was the whole Lost Ark segue into like censorship kind of and other things. But right when you think it's over, it's not over. So
Oh no, I'm trapped. Send help.
so Power Rangers Dino Fury. Now Power Rangers Dino Fury decided to introduce series first LGBT Ranger. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I don't give a shit. To me, it's just like I don't know what they're doing. That's where I'm at. I'm like, and like, I'm pretty sure people that watch Power Rangers are watching it for the action and the story and what's going on. They're not worried about, hey man, what these characters are doing in the bedroom or what they're doing behind the scenes. I mean, I don't know. I don't speak for that community, but if they are, I think they're watching the wrong show.
It's hotter with the suit on.
Oh man. Anyways, Power Rangers is just being. I think it's time for Power Rangers to get to be a darker story. That's all I'm saying.
Oh no!
Yeah, we need darker Power Rangers. I'm talking about like
Trying to kill them all off.
what was that thing that the guy did on YouTube? I forgot. He did the Castlevania series though. Damn, forgot his name. But he did like a short live action like Power Rangers where like it was like Power Rangers Bootleg or something like that, and it was like a more realistic take, and Power Rangers were like dying and shit.
I have no idea. I
And
haven't watched Power
I'll
Rangers in
send you
ages.
I'll send you the video later so you can watch it. It's not your family friendly Power Rangers.
Oh no.
And then on to this next one here. Sega shelves. We did talk about this one off air too. Sega shelves. I'm gonna try
Uh,
to pronounce this anime right. I'm probably gonna butcher the name. Petit sekai episode indefinitely. It basically has been shelved
oh,
indefinitely following
oh, that's
allegations of blackface from Western audiences.
right. That's right.
And
So
I send you the image in question that's
yeah,
so
you brought that
controversial.
and so yeah, like we were mentioning before, it's like, yes, my race is of African American or black or whatever. I saw the image that Ray sent me, and I'm just like, what? I'm like, that makes no sense.
Yeah, it's
I'm like,
stupid.
they're not. It's like it is stupid. It has nothing to do
It's
with blackface or this or that and everything. No,
no, no, it doesn't.
they just look like gals or mambas, which is what those are. Is
Yeah,
pretty much which is a
I can't help but to laugh every time you say that. Mumba's like I don't even
mamba. No,
know.
yeah,
Like, excuse
it's
my
a
ignorance
style.
with the anime
Yeah.
lingo, people. I hear mambas and I'm thinking like big chocobos or Final Fantasy or something.
What?
Like,
No. But it's a style in Japan, and that's what they. I'm just like, no, that has nothing to do with blackface. I'm like, that's just stupid. People, I'm like, that's a stretch, to be honest. I'm like, I don't know how people got offended by that.
I, your guess is as good as mine. I don't know either. It's like these days. This goes back to what I said earlier. We live in a time where it seems like everyone gets offended for like
You know
literally
what?
anything.
When you put this up, you have to put a link to the picture so everyone can see. I'm just like, wait,
Yeah,
what? I'm
I'm
like,
gonna
no.
do that. No, because
I'm like,
for
this does
those
not offend
okay, for
whatsoever.
those who want to look for this, because I see I could link it, but I don't know how that's gonna work. Because if I upload this on the because this podcast is gonna be on other platforms where there's no I can put no links in the description because there's no description per se. But I will tell
Uh,
you where you can look for the article that we're talking about. If you go to Bounding into Comics and you search up Sega Shelves Petit Senkai episode and definitely following allegations of blackface from Western audiences, if you just type that in, you'll definitely find the article. And the
but it's
image is in that article in question.
it's so stupid. That's a dumb reason. Once you see the picture, you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, it's like right in there. Or maybe you could image search it. I'm not sure. Maybe if y'all wanted to look it up, maybe y'all could find the image. But it's out there, and it's like Azure said to me, it's stupid personally, and this is really a nothing burger. I don't even know why this was even. I mean, who was offended? That's I don't
I don't
understand.
know.
Like, so now on to River City Girls. Where do I begin with this one? So Western localization upsets River City. Now this is old news for the most part, kind of old, but upsets River City Girls Zero offers options for more literal translations. Claim their work is being disrespected. This is also another article that can be found on Bounty in the Comics for those who are curious. Uh, Basically, this has to do with the translations.
Yeah.
But I know Azure has some feelings about the series as of late. So I don't know if you want to talk about
Well, no.
what you
The
find to
trend.
be an issue.
Well, it's see the funny thing is, I don't know why they're offended. It's like it's an option, first of all. It's like people can choose your translations or they can choose the more literal translations, but they're just mad that the option actually exists. I'm just like, why? I'm like, options is always a better thing for everyone. It's like if you have if you can actually have control over it, it's like that's totally fine. It's like
Mm.
it's the same thing with like censored, uncensored version. It's like there should always be those choices. They're just mad because I guess they said like their work is being undermined, and because if I remember correctly, people actually prefer the literal translations and everything. And that goes back to what I was saying before, is that about the actual meanings of things, and some people like it better when, when things are represented more exact to what they were supposed to mean, instead of just, being translated by, people who think this is better just because.
Mm. But we live in a time where it's, as I said before, it just doesn't seem to matter anymore. I mean, listen, though, I can think of right now is The Last of Us 2, where I don't even want to start talking about Last of Us 2, man. Oh my gosh, I thought about that game just now. I'm just like, why am I even bringing it up? Uh,
And that was the last of them.
yes, that's. I mean, look, Last of Us did so bad. They're remaking the first one, and they didn't even have a trilogy of games yet. They're just like, nope, we're gonna remake the first one, and we're gonna butcher because I'm pretty sure something's gonna go wrong when they remake this first one, so they could justify what happened in the second one. Because I think that's what's gonna happen. They're gonna do something with Joel, and they're gonna be like, well, this is the justification for this, this, this. The Last of Us might as well go off into the sunset at this point, unless they're gonna totally reboot it. I'll be honest with you, if they reboot The Last of Us, this is probably the at least that I know of, the earliest video game reboot I've ever seen. Like it didn't even get a part three; it just went right back to the first one, and then reboot into like. I don't even care, even for because they're doing a live action show. I don't even care for the show. I'm like, I don't care for the show. They lost me with part two. I
I
don't
didn't
care.
even know they were making live
A
action.
fun fact: I didn't play part two. For those who are wondering, I seen some playthroughs, especially on the questionable parts, which I will tell you right now. Last of Us can go off into the sunset, as far as I'm concerned. They could just go away. I don't care.
It's like I talked to a couple people that finished it and played it. They said I wasn't really missing anything.
Yeah, to me, I enjoy my Resident Evil. I look forward to Dead Space. I hope Dead Space doesn't get ruined. It doesn't look like it so far, but I'm definitely looking forward to Dead Space. The return of necromorphs and stuff.
Dead,
Huh?
uh, Dead Space.
I will get mad if they
I
ruin
only,
it. What?
I only have one gripe with Dead Space.
What is that?
Dead Space, please. So the first weapon in the game is the best weapon in the game. That's all you
Oh,
need.
that. Okay, hold on. I played the
It's,
hell out of Dead Spaces, and like, okay, the first Dead Space, the plasma color. That's the one you're talking about. That it
it's
won.
the very that's all you need throughout the entirety of the game. It made every other weapon kind of useless, and I'm just like, wow. I'm like, I hope they change this in the sequels. I mean, because when you pick up newer weapons, they're supposed to be better. It's supposed to be a sense of accomplishment. Like, oh yeah, I got this new weapon, this new gun, and then it's like I start using them. It's like, wow, these aren't better than the very first weapon I got. I'm just gonna upgrade and use this one.
It's crazy because the plasma color, for what I can tell, it was in the first one was like a lot of people will say it was like the most powerful weapon technically, but to
It,
me every weapon sort of had a use if you're trying if you're playing on the harder difficulty. If you're playing on the hardest difficulty, everything is you're gonna really want to strategize. Like the power scaling goes out the window when it comes to the plasma color when it comes to the harder difficulty, in my opinion. But then there's also part two and part three, and that's when everything changes, in my opinion, because things just the weapons and the environment and the enemies change as well. Um, but nonetheless, I mean, I'm curious to see what will happen with Dead Space 2. I mean, not Dead Space 2, Dead Space. Now I'm thinking Dead Space 2. I'm curious to see where it's gonna go in the remake. Um, but at the same time, what I want to see in Dead Space 2, if they can include the characters from Dead Space Extraction, or at least have a chapter that takes place beforehand, or what, or however they'll fit it in, because Dead Space has those gaps that they did a poor job filling, especially because they had the animated films, which to me were like neither here or there. And then Dead Space Extraction was like meh, and then they had the mobile game, which I didn't care too much about, and then like EA went to milk it, man. EA was really trying to milk that game. I'm curious though, outside of talking about Dead Space, I'm wondering if they're ever going to actually continue Mirror's Edge because Mirror's Edge is, I mean, Mirror's Edge when they got re-released when it was rebooted, it's unknown whether there'll ever be a sequel to that game.
It went off the edge. It's gone.
Well, I mean, in many ways, even if they want to do a sequel, the ending is fitting for it. Like it the ending was left open. Like they could literally just go off into the sunset and that's it. But
Yeah,
I,
that's where it went.
I always found the song depressing though, and maybe it's just me for Mirror's Edge. I'm still alive. I'm still alive. Okay, I screwed up
Out
completely.
my ears.
Yeah. Oh my gosh! Look, if y'all type in, I don't know. I think did they? I think they brought that song back, but they remixed it for the reboot of it. But I only remember the song by the lyrics. Like it was called "Still Alive." I believe his title is "Still Alive." Actually, I could be wrong. Oh my gosh.
I don't know.
Anyways, this now kind of just so yeah, we covered a lot here. Uh, y'all can feel free to express your comments down below, depending on where you're viewing this podcast. Of course, this podcast is available on almost all platforms. I say almost. Uh, no, just most of them. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today. I have to thank Azure for joining me again on this podcast um, as a guest. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Do you have anything else you want to add, Azure, before signing off? This
No, I think like you said, that's it. Covered everything.
that's pretty much it for now. I don't know when the next podcast is gonna happen. Just for those who are wondering, there's no time frame for when these podcasts are gonna happen. But there will be hopefully another podcast in the future. I just don't know when exactly because I got a lot of things going on in my life right now. I'll just leave it like that. Things that are just me. But
I'm
nonetheless,
still.
what?
I said I'm still alive.
But nonetheless, I thank all of you who tuned in and made it this far. Hope y'all enjoyed the podcast. I do greatly appreciate it. Feel free to like, subscribe, follow. I'll leave links below in the description, depending on where you're watching this podcast, of course, to the where I can be found or whatever on social media or whatever, or where Azure's at, of course. So I'll leave that down below in the description. And as always, this is Rayuka here saying thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and until next time, everyone, sayonara.
See you later, everyone.